The image that we're dealing with here, and I have a colleague from many years ago, Mark Wenham, who lives in Suffolk, to thank for this. And in fact, I have my sister to thank, who put me on to this as well. So she said to me, will you ever be doing skies? And so this is really why I'm here doing skies, or this particular sky. The photograph we've sent through is a sunset in Suffolk in England, the east of England. And it's pretty dark here. I think some of you might have looked, but there are cows in this field. I think the point I'd like to make about this is that how many people are here? 151. Well, we're going to have 152 different interpretations of this photograph, and I think that is brilliant. And none of them are going to be the same, because you're all going to tackle it slightly differently. And as we go through this painting, I hope to give you enough information for you to go ahead and tackle it as you wish. Having said that, none of us would ever really know how a painting is going to turn out. So you keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best. So we're going to be using Mark Wenham's photograph of a sunset in Suffolk. And we're going to be working in 4 different stages. Every single one of these I've done, I've tried to break the painting into 4 stages. The first stage will be making a drawing. And included in that, I discuss the composition and why we make a drawing, where we make a drawing. This particular one is going to be, I think, relatively simple, this drawing. And the second stage, and I'll explain them each as we go along, we'll be putting down a light wash. We'll let that dry. We'll then put darker colors on, and then finally go into some further details. I know a lot of you will work alongside me, and although I stop after each stage and give a chance for people to do their own work, I think it's a good idea, if you can, to work alongside me and use that period that I stop just to catch up. Okay. And with that, I will begin and get going. So I said that the drawing was relatively simple, and in fact, it really, I think you might see this better if I show you a practice painting I did. You can see I've lightened up this a great deal in this particular practice painting, and the painting I'll do now may bear no resemblance to this at all. But probably the most important thing to do is just to establish the horizon, where that's going to be. So that we're talking about drawing a line, and we're talking about considering compositionally where that line might be. We've got a great sky here. We are painting a sky. That's what this painting is all about. And I think we'll give quite a large portion of the format of the paper over to the sky. You choose absolutely where you want this to be, but I'm going to bring it down to about a line, and I'll actually draw this line in here. I'll bring that down to there. Let's make it a bit darker so you can see it. That meaning that this is going to be sky, and this is going to be the ground, the distance as well as the foreground here. If you like, and it might be quite useful, I'm just going to make some little light marks of where this clump of trees might be, and that's probably the most important one, and maybe something here. And I'll do that with, I'll just shift it slightly over something. It's going to be something like that. This will all get lost. These pencil marks will get lost in, and I won't bother putting in the distant trees at the moment. And we're going to be having some trees coming here. Probably a good reason for putting that mark in is because I think it's really nice to have this light area, the lighter part of the sky here, emphasized by these dark trees. So when I'm doing my first bit of painting, where I put the light colors is going to be somewhere around here. And then probably the most difficult bit of the drawing is the cows. Now, you put your cows in wherever you like and however many you like. How big they are or how small they are will depend on, in a sense, how close to the cows you might make them. But if I begin and put some in here, and any of you who are a little unsure can then take that and then work on your own cows. There is a theory that if you want to suggest there being a large number, you should have at least 5. This goes for flower arranging. I think it goes for all sorts of things. But so I'm going to put at least 5 cows in, and I'm going to have some larger at the front and some a little smaller at the back. Here we go. Let's say they're all munching, and in his photograph, all but one are all facing the same way. So let's just have they've got fairly straight backs. Let's just, and they've got sharp and then bend down, something like, you can see that, something like, so that's a cow. Right, he's going to be probably my biggest cow here, so I'll pop in a couple of others. So I think if you're drawing now, this is a good time to be pondering just where you want your cows. Do you want them in a clump? Do you want to spread them out? Let's put a smaller one here, maybe. He's smaller, so he's further away. And something like that. And I went out the other day specifically to watch what cows look like when they're all feeding. And it's remarkable how they look so similar. Put another one here, maybe. I'm going to have one of them turning the other way, I think. I think I ought to do that. Right, so put your cows in. I'll stick another one back here, I think. Can you see the drawings I'm doing, Lois, all right?
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, all right. They have quite straight backs, actually, is something I noticed when I was looking at cows the other day. The heads just drop right down to the food, to the ground. Stick one the other way here, I think. So as with everything else in this painting you're doing, it's entirely yours. You decide what to do as you go along with the painting. I'm going to have one doubled up with this one, I think. He's sort of lost behind that one a bit. There, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 cows. So just a recap on this first stage, we're thinking about the composition, the important, I haven't turned the paper the other way around because it seems to me that you get much more sky if you go this way. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I just went for having it landscape like this. Having much more sky than ground. you decide just what sort of proportions you want in your painting. Photographers often work on this rule of third, where so often you get 1/3 and 2/3, or 1/3 and 2/3. And if you look at a lot of photographs, the focus is often on that third, whether it be here, the horizon, or whether it be here, maybe for some trees or something like that. But I mean, that's just by the by. And make a mark. I've made a mark there just as a reminder where I want my light skies to be. You see, I've made quite a change from the photograph to my painting I did there. I've in terms of color and everything. This photograph, don't forget, I mean, it does, I'm sure it does an injustice to Mark's original photograph, but it's been through the computer, it's been through my printer, and it's flattened out and become rather dark as a result. So artistic license will allow you to do whatever sky you want to do. And then I put the cows in here. Again, the size that you put will say something about how you're looking at the landscape. All right, this is the second stage of doing this watercolor, and here we're going to put washes on, light washes, pretty much in the main, but just be aware that the colors that go on here will be the lightest colors that appear eventually in your finished painting. This might look a very haphazard and haphazard type of stage, but it's really about setting the scene for the type of sunset that you want to happen. In this photograph, there's a lot of red comes out, and in this one I did here, I brought in other colors. I'm probably going to do a bit more than that still in this one. So I'm going to use this big mop brush. I'm going to paint up the top here first and down below, but it doesn't matter if they mix in a little bit. Lots of water. The colors that I'm actually standing up. I find it easier to stand up back here, but you don't notice that, I don't think. I'm using this Aurelian yellow. Cadmium yellow would be a sort of an appropriate, would be an equivalent. I'm using that yellow and a lot of water just at the moment, and I'll slop it on here. All right, let's I'm going to pick up this crimson, alizarin crimson, and put that down here. Big brush, lots of water. Probably going to end up covering most of the paper with paint. If you were doing a painting where you wanted things to be white, of the paper, the white, then of course you'd leave out bits. But here I'm not in that. We're in the sunset. There's not a lot light about this. Right, I'm going to switch now and pick up this color called Windsor Red and put some of that in here. And I want a bit more Windsor Red to go up there. So let's, at this stage, whilst you're working wet, yeah, I've got bring in some red there. That's good. And bring in some slightly darker alizarin crimson here. I'm going to take that down here, a lot of that color. This yellow is still wet. And you can't go wrong keeping it really wet here. All the darks of the sky and the purples and everything like that, we're going to deal with that later on. So we're just going to put in the warmth and the light colors of the sky that we see underneath all those dark bits in the photograph. Bring in a bit more yellow here, sort of create some sort of orange. I don't know how yellow I actually want that to be, so I think I'll bring some of that. I'll bring some of that down here, just sort of make that a little more orangey, I think, at this stage. Do I want to? Now, if you think when you're doing this, oh my goodness me, this is all a bit too strong, and it's a good thing to do that, because it's all going to dry lighter, and it's going to have dark colors set against it, which will, you'll be surprised, will make it look a lot lighter than you think. Whilst the paint's still a bit wet, I'm just getting some completely dry alizarin crimson. I'm just whisking the top of the brush over that, and I think we'll call that the sky on that one. And I'm going to put the grass in here. Now, the color I'm using for the grass is what I'd call a convenience color. It's sap green. But convenience because I can just pick it up and use it. Although more often than not, I use it and then I mix other colors in with it. But it's a secondary color, a convenience color. And if you haven't got sap green, then let me just make something here and show you what might give you something equivalent. Something like cadmium yellow or Aurelian mixed with cobalt blue is going to give you, depending on how yellow or blue you want it, that's going to give you something of equivalent nature. It will be just as good as this sap green, but I'm conscious that for 12 or 13 classes now, I've had sap green there and I've never used it, so I'm going to use it now. So pick up some sap green. I'm just going to use, I think I'll use the sap green straight out of it, and then run that over the ground. What I'll do, in fact, I will make it slightly stronger at the front, where it's going to be closer to us, and just a little bit weaker at the back. So there we are. That goes up to that line, whether you've drawn it with a ruler or just hand drawn it or whatever. Picking up, when you're watercolor painting, you usually bring in a stronger color, drier color onto wet paper. If you bring wet paint onto wet paper, you get these blooms or blossoms, or we call them different things around the world. There we are. I think that is the second stage of this painting. Before we go on to the next stage, this wants to be completely dry. In a moment, I'll dry this with a hairdryer to do that. But it's over to you now, everybody, to put in your washes as part of the second stage of this watercolor, coming up with some sort of, make it stronger. If in doubt, make it as strong as you can up here. And whatever green you put in here, I put sort of quite a sort of mid sort of green in, which is what sap green is. But if you want to mix your own green, that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to spray this and then work my various colors as quickly as I can, really. And I'll talk about what I'm doing whilst the paint is wet. I think that's the important thing. You just got to be aware of how wet your paper is. Here we go. I'm going to give this a spray. So okay, that's pretty wet all over now. More wet in some areas than others, I suspect. And I'm going to use, I think I'll use this smaller brush here and pick up this mauve. So there's my mauve here. And whilst it's all wet, it'll sort of be working itself into. Now this brush is maybe, okay, that's just a good one, or stronger color. I'm going to add some blue to that one. So the colors I'm putting on here, and then try and leave some gaps so that the colors can merge into each other. Let's just put some here. At this stage, I'll flick a bit of paint around, so I'll work with that. This part of the painting here, in the photograph, I quite like it. It's quite blue, so I think I'll bring in more blue here and let that sort of work its way into the purple. And now I'm bringing some stronger blue into various bits of the purple here. So it's not all just flat. I'm adding no water to this because there's water on the paper already. And where I'm sort of dabbing these things on, which is very strong paint, I'm putting them on, especially where I know that it's wet. And let's see what happens to them, what they do. Let's bring something a bit darker up here. Go back to this bit at the bottom. Make that darker still. Right, so we'll leave that as the sky. It's painting itself at the moment. It's all these bits here are going to soften up a little bit, and we'll see what they do. So don't be tempted to get the hairdryer out at this stage. And now I'm going to, hello?
This is Pam in Oregon.
Hello, Pam.
Why is it white up at the top? You haven't put any paint there.
Oh, that's masking tape. I just haven't painted over it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, when I looked at it earlier, I wondered that, but it's just that I painted over the masking tape, and that little bit I haven't. Right, so for the field here.
Mike?
Yes.
Sorry to unmute. What's the dark colour that you've just put in, those sort of spots, please?
Well, that's a mixture of mauve and blue.
Oh, just right. Thank you.
I've only really just used those two colours in here, just to keep it sort of simple. And in some places it's got a bit of water in it. Other places it's much more solid. And,
what blue is it, please?
French ultramarine.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to paint the evening darkness over the field now, and I'm going to use exactly the same colors that I've used here. I've been deliberately sort of keeping it simple with these two colors. So I've got mauve, but I've gone back to my bigger brush now because I want to sort of sweep it over. So let's pick up a bit of water with this, bit of mauve, and mix in blue. In fact, I'll probably have it more blue than mauve, thinking about it. Yeah, more blue than mauve. And that's going to go over this quite light green. And we'll not know exactly how it works until we've seen it finish. So that I'll sweep that over. Yeah. Pretty much covering everything here. Maybe the odd little bit showing up. I'm going to do something with this in a moment. So whilst this is wet, I just want to be aware of how wet it is. I want to sort of mess the field up a little bit. Given that it's a sunset, you're not going to see much of that messed up field. But if I pick up the brush like this and get a strong color, again, in fact, what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of something like burnt sienna or raw amber here, just like that. The point is it wants to be as strong a color as you can make it. It doesn't need to have much water in it. And because there's lots of water on here, I'm just going to make a few little marks. Now these are, in the distance, they're going to be virtually lost. But so I'm making a few marks here, bring a few marks here.
Sorry, which color is it? Sorry, I missed it.
I've used the same colors, French ultramarine, mauve, but I brought a little bit of brown in. But the point is that keep your colors strong. If you introduce wet colors here, you'll get all these blossoms happening, and I don't particularly want that. So I'm making a few little marks. A lot of these, and especially at the background here, just edge of the brush, just a few marks here. I'll be doing something a bit like this later on, and that's will do for this stage of the painting. So we've over the washes we created in the second set, we brought in these darker colors in the sky, and being aware of how much water we had on the paper, and having some light areas and some dark, keeping as much of our some of the yellow light we've got here. And then I've brought pretty much the same sort of colors over the green that I put here to try and, as happens when the sun goes down, things flatten out and it becomes difficult to distinguish colors very much. I actually would like this area to be a little bit darker. In the photograph, it is. And in fact, in my practice painting, I've sort of made it a bit darker. But if I'm going to, I said that once we painted the sky, we leave the sky, and that's fine. But if I wanted to make this a bit darker, there's a way that I could do that without feeling that I'm overworking it. And here you could use a brush with water, no reason why not, but I'm going to use this spray. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray this area here. It doesn't matter if the spray goes up, because and then I'm going to bring in some blue, darker blue here, and let it just work its way up into this area here. There won't be any hard edges or anything like that, I think, because it'll be going into water. And I'm hoping that it'll be a sort of seamless dark to light. And so here we go. Let's have a go at this one. I'll block this off, because when I've done this, when it's had a little bit of chance to dry, I'll dry it off quickly, and then I'll go into what is the final stage of the painting. So I'm just doing a little amendment to the painting here, and as much as anything, it's just to show you how you might do it. So I've just sprayed that area there. I don't know how much water is on that now. Quite a lot. Okay, so let's pick up my French ultramarine, and I'll add a little bit of burnt sienna to that, just to grey it down a bit. There we go. And if I put that in there, quite strong paint. And if I turn it this way a bit so that it's leaning down, and just leave it to fester for a bit, let's make that a bit stronger, just a little bit. Whoa, drop my brush. Okay, let's just see what happens there. That's if I went ahead and dried that now, it's I want let me turn it right up this way so that it's running down the page a bit. I think by the time I put the next lot of paint on everything, it'll anything that might not have worked in this will be good. But this area here is wet from the spray. So I'm now going to the last of the 4 stages, which is detail, if you like. But in this case, for this type of painting, it's going to involve quite a lot of darkness for the trees that are all pretty much flattened, and in many pretty much more or less, the whole thing is more or less silhouetted. I'm going to be using a combination of this brush and the really bad haircut brush, this one. Okay. But there are other brushes you could use for really bad haircut. I mean, this one is called a hake. I'm sure some of you got that. And what I would probably do is I would probably use, when you wet it, let's just wet it. You can, it sort of sticks out. Can you see what I'm talking about? You can make it and use the edge of the brush. The thing about, as you will see with this bad haircut brush, is that it's unpredictable what it will do. And I want that sort of looseness of the silhouetted trees, and I think it would help if I do that. So there are lots of other brushes that you could make use in that way. You can probably, I've never used them. I think you can buy brushes that actually do trees, but I'm sure some of you have got them. I haven't got one though. Okay, so I'm going to use these two brushes for pretty much most of this now to finish it off. And I think everything's going to be darker now. The colors I'm going to play around with are this French ultramarine here, and I'm going to mix a bit of mauve with it, but that's not going to be dark enough for what I want. So I'm going to go up to this color here, which is neutral tint. Now, a color that, if you haven't got this, a color that's very useful, similar to this, is Payne's Gray. The difference between the two is that Payne's Gray is more opaque than neutral tint. Careful about using black at this stage because it might be a bit too heavy. Or if you do use it, don't use very much of it. So I've got quite a dark color mix there. And I'm going to work my way along the background, back here, into the trees up here, round at the back here, and into these trees. You'll see also, if I could just warn you, that I'm going to be trying to suggest that these trees here in the foreground are in the foreground, and that the trees there are in the background, and that there is some sort of space in between the two. That's because we're looking down slightly on the cows, and we can see a little bit of this distance, but not a great deal. So I'll be talking about that in a moment.
Someone's asking, can you add indigo?
Yes, yeah. In fact, you could make this color out of anything you like. You could make it out of French ultramarine and burnt sienna. I'm just trying to keep some sort of blue and red into it a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Basically, we're making a dark color. I just think black wouldn't be a great color to use here. Let's see what's happening down here. Let's just put this is pretty much the distance here, and using the tip of the brush, I can make a few little marks here, might suggest that there's something going on. And that takes me that's sort of in the distance there. I quite like how that works. And now I'm using my bad haircut day brush and mix up some. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put this on, which is a mixture of ultramarine blue and the mauve, and then I'll add the black into it here. So let's just you make up the trees just as you like, but you can see this bad haircut is producing marks that would be really difficult to, if you sat down and try and predict these marks, now that's not dark enough at the moment, so I'm going to pick up some neutral tint and I'll drop that in. And as it's going on to wet paint, I'll leave a few little gaps there so you get the idea that, and in fact, this comes down a little bit forward because it's in the foreground. Let's just put it here, something like that. So I've been dropping the neutral tint or Payne's grey or black or whatever it is there. Let's just put something in the background here. And bring that down a little more forward and just, now you can, I could use my bad haircut for this, but I think because it's maybe further away, even the shapes are merging in a little bit. And then take that here and let's go back to my bad haircut brush. I want some of the light to come through the bushes. If you've got a brush like this, or you can manufacture something that will give you these marks, it's quite good. You look at it and you think, oh, I could never have painted that. Thank you, Mr. Bad Haircut Brush. You've done me a favor. So let's bring in this neutral tint just to darken it. Even more. I was talking about making there's a bit of light there, which I'll get rid of. It's not helping. I think if you try and make these look too much like trees, you might be on a bit of a hiding to nothing here. So let's just right. Right, the cows and the field next. Whilst the paint is still a bit wet, I'm dropping in a bit more neutral tint. Okay, so I think we've made use of that light area here. Now I'm going to use this dark color that I've got here with the French ultramarine blue. There's a difference between French ultramarine blue and ultramarine blue. There's not a big difference, but the French one is a little bit warmer, a little bit more red in it. And this is French ultramarine as opposed to ultramarine. So I'm going to paint in with this mixture of the two, the cows. And if I want them to be darker, I'll drop in some neutral tint on that one. So let's just go. This brush has got a little point of its own. So let's just see, paint them in. So if you're painting along with me, you've all got cows, and don't get too bogged down with thick legs. We just want the impression of a cow. And there's one behind here as well. He sort of blanks out the other one a little bit. He's got legs. And their legs tend to sort of go down in line with their mouths where they're feeding. I'm going to go around here. We're blessed with wonderful herds of cows around here. So there's lots of, got no excuse for. So just pop a little bit of, whilst it's still wet, let's a little bit of neutral. Thing about neutral tint is that it's more transparent than Payne's grey. And all right, so I'll carry on working down here. Put these little chaps in at the back, they're much smaller. Probably hardly make out their shapes. Two little cows. Come back to this fella. That looks a bit blue to me, so I'll add some more neutral tint to that. Put some others, or this is probably the closest one, I think, of them all. They have quite square backs. I've got 2 more cows to do, unless I want to add any more. By all means, if you feel you've not got enough cows in your painting, so there are my cows, and what I've got to decide really is what else I want to put on the field. I talked about messing the field up a little bit, and I think I need to do that. So I'm coming back to these colours, and I'm just making some marks as I did before, but the marks that I did before have sort of softened into the background. These will be, in fact, what I'll do, I think, is I'll do a bit of flicking. Just, I don't want to get this over my nice sunset, so I'll just maybe a few marks like that.
Asking if there are shadows from the cows.
I don't think you'd see shadows at this stage of the day. If you do, your eyesight's better than mine. No, I don't think there'll be shadows from the cows. In fact, one of the options I have is to actually make it even darker still. I was just going to wait and see what it looked like, and if I do, I'll show you how I'll do that. So I've got I mean, I don't know what these are. It's just to, and as things go further away, then we're going to see much less I'm just wondering whether that's too light. I mean, it may be just right. I don't know at the moment. No, I've got a feeling you wouldn't see the shadows under the cows, not at this time of the day. So having flicked it, I'm just adding a few little bits. And now I've got to the stage, I think, where I've got to just decide whether that's what I want or not. I don't think I'll make the cows any darker. I mean, I had thought of introducing some slightly brown marks here, but you probably wouldn't see even that color with this, especially as this light is, not only is the light overall dark, flattening everything, but also you've got this background light, which is silhouetting things as well. So I don't know, maybe I'll leave that, because that looks, if anything, as if it's a sort of beginning of a mist. I mean, what I was wondering is, do I dry it and take another color of darkness over this? And I'm inclined not to do so. I'm inclined, and even if I did, I'd probably do it tomorrow when I'd come back into the studio and have a look at the painting. But let me have a look. Are we finished? That's always the difficult thing, isn't it? Are we finished? Yeah, I think I'm finished. Lois, that is the painting done.
Wow, thank you very much indeed. Marvelous.
And good luck, everybody. Good luck to you all. I love to see. I'm just really, more so than any of the others, I'm looking forward to seeing how these ones turn out.